Welcome to Georgetown. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales.
Hundreds of students, professors, and representatives of various agricultural interest groups descended on Washington this week for a royal speech pertaining to food policy and not wedding plans.
The world somehow has to find the means of feeding a staggering 219,000 new mouths every day. That's about 450 since I started talking. And what is more, with incomes rising in places like India, China and India, there will also be more people wealthy enough to consume more. So the demand for meat and dairy products may well increase yet further. And all that extra livestock will compete for feed more and more with an energy sector that has massively expanded its demand for biofuels.
Charles, Prince of Wales, a consistent critic of genetically modified crops and a strong proponent of organic agriculture, painted a bleak picture for domestic and foreign users of water.
The Ogallala aquifer on the Great Plains, for instance, is depleting by 1.3 trillion gallons faster than rainfall can replenish it. By 2030, it is estimated that the world's farmers will need 45% more water than today. And yet already, because of irrigation, many of the world's largest rivers no longer reach the sea for part of the year, including, I'm afraid, the Colorado and Rio Grande.
Visitors on hand for the Future of Food Summit in Washington also heard a mix of questions and answers from organic and local food proponents, many of whom represent so-called sustainable agriculture.
There's been an enormous amount of talk about the move in the last 40 years to centralized big ag, right? Big agriculture, that there's in the hands of a few companies and the hands of the few producers now have enormous power. But is it realistic that we're going to go back to a country of local farmers?
Well,
so what are we looking and aiming towards?
Well, big ag hasn't fed the world. In 1960, they told us farmers to grow soybeans and corn, fence row to fence row, we were going to feed the world. And farmers were going to be prosperous. We have, 1 million less farmers. We have more hunger in the world than ever before. That system hasn't worked.
Food prices rising all over the world.
Recently, for the first time, the UN said a local sustainable food system is really the only way to feed the world. So we know that system is not sustainable.
Much of the discussion centered on the future market share of organic versus production agriculture, but food quality and caloric intake and overall health were also targeted.
I know that Panera Foods posts on their menu, they post the number of calories per item, and I know that the last time I was there, I chose not to order the mac and cheese after seeing that. I was wondering if you saw a market change in consumer behavior when they're armed with information like that.
When we posted the caloric information, we're now 2 years into it, we saw for 80% of the consumers no change at all. They didn't even really understand. They saw it, they valued it because it was a statement of respect for them. But they didn't do anything different in the context of that. The other 20% we saw move around modestly in the menu, moved away from higher calorie items, much like you might have with the mac and cheese, and adjusted their diet.
Despite a divergent mix of representatives from organic agriculture, some panelists and the keynote speaker, Prince Charles, praised portions of production agriculture. In addition to a stream of production agriculture criticisms, the heir to the British royal throne outlined his vision for global food production and ironically proposes a tax and trade model similar to the United States ethanol industry.
In the way that governments around the world have stimulated the growth of the renewable energy market by the provision of market mechanisms and feed-in tariffs. Could what has been done for energy production be applied to food? Is this worth considering? After all, it could have a very powerful, transformative effect on the market for sustainably produced food with benefits all round.